Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome back to the second day of this ASET 104. I hope you're having a wonderful and an amazing day. I'm just preparing the camera. I'm sorry, I'm just moving a few stuffs around. So I hope that you're doing great. Welcome back. All you know me. For the people who didn't knew me yesterday, I am your instructor. I will be your instructor during these next couple of days until we get to the exam prep for the ASET 104. So I'm hoping that you're getting a wonderful day. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, UTC, Universal Time. So I'm just hoping you have a wonderful morning. Well, yesterday it seems we had a couple of issues with the people connecting to their labs. Apparently they didn't know how to connect correctly. So I hope you guys could fix that issue and you receive the correct instructions. Otherwise, just let me know and I will help you out. So welcome. All right, one more time. I'm just waiting to see if the screen is working. The ASET 104, the Microsoft Azure Administrator, to get that certification for being an administrator in Azure. Like I said yesterday, remember that certifications in Microsoft are step by step, so you don't have to rush, you don't have to study that deep in the beginning because you're learning step by step. All right. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself again. Well, you know me. Just my pen here. Where's my pen? I am Jose Rodolfo Moreno. Actually, my full name is Jose Rodolfo Moreno Ponce de Leon, which is a really full name. My nickname is Fofo. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I have a little background in aviation technology, networking, and cloud computing. As you know me, well, my hobbies, where's the camera? Okay. What I love the most, it's playing the guitar, to sing, play video games, something that I love a lot. All the pictures that I showed you yesterday, that I feel proud about it. And that it's me here on the screen as well. You can see me. So yesterday we end up talking and before we got to the topic, I like to remember you the rules of the class. This is important because in this moment I'm suffering from an internet outage from my ISP provider. So if I have any issue, please, if I got a disconnection, just stay tuned and wait for the instruction for the instructors and moderators here in the session. All right, the rules of the class: keep attention, your mic in mute, have a lot of fun while you learn. And don't be shy. Feel free to participate. All right. So yesterday I didn't get to this part talking about the resources, creating resources with tools in Azure. More than anything, get to know what are the tools we have in Azure to create or deploy all the resources that we need. First of all, we have the Azure portal, which I said. It's my favorite because it gives me like a nice user experience, And thank you. Good morning, people in the chat. It's kind of my favorite. It gives you like a better visual way to interact with the tools and interact with all the resources. And of course, all the parameters that you have to fill up and all the configuration. It's from my point of view, it's more friendly. Of course, there is people that I'd like to still configuring some tools with the CLI, the command line interface, or the PowerShell, and so on. But for me, Azure Portal, it's the one. I see some people in the chat saying that it's the first class and they will be needing some help for the connecting to the labs. No worries. Remember, this is 2-session lectures, and after the lecture, we just go to the lab session where all the help that you need, it will be solved by us. But no worry at this moment, just worry about paying attention and review the topics that we are discussing right now. That's the important thing. Okay. The Azure portal, it helps you to, let me just put it like bigger, to manage the resources. It's the interface is more visual, like I said, you know. So you can personalize your experience. The way that I personalize my portal that I used to, I like to use the black color. So for me, that's my favorite tool. Also, you can use the Cloud Shell. You can use the Cloud Shell, which is also interactive and it's browser accessible. That means that you can access from the browser, okay? And it offers the Bash or PowerShell capability. It will authenticate automatically. What that means that it authenticates automatically, let me just go to my, I'm going to my portal and I will show you here the portal. And if you go on the top screen, I'm just waiting for it to change the screen. It doesn't seem to be changing. It doesn't seem to be changing the screen. Let me just take it out. Just 1 second. Put it in again. That's funny. Why it not? It's not. It's taking time. Let me see if you can see the screen. Right now it seems black to me. Don't know why. Just 1 second. So I'm just trying to see if I'm sharing the screen, but I'm not able to see it on their own screen. Okay, thank you. Thank you that they confirmed that I can see my screen. So here in the portal, I will just tap this one here. You can see this part here, okay? We have a couple of tools, all right? Also, this is a very important tool, you know, the search bar. It's a really, really important tool. But here you have this icon, which will lead you to the PowerShell or the Bash. Let me show you how it works. I just click it here. And when it says that it connects and it authenticates automatically, this is what it's meaning. You see, it says requesting Cloud Shell succeed connecting to terminal. It's doing like in automatic. Also, if I change, let me just make it a little bit bigger. Do you see how the authentication works here? Let me show you. Here, authenticate to Azure. You see, it asks me to select a subscription and stuff. But also, if I change it from the PowerShell to the Bash, the same thing is going to be happening. It's going to be authenticated automatically. This says that my drive is not available. Oh, you know what? This Azure Pass that I have, it's already expired. That's why. And well, what I was trying to show you is how it connects. It's not that I have to type on like any password or anything. You just do it automatically. Okay, I still cannot see my screen sharing on the presenter. Let me see if the audience is working. It kind of rings me. Okay, that's good. Kind of rings me when I cannot see myself. And also, and as well, we have the PowerShell, right? Or the CLI, also known as the command line interface. This is a command line program. It's interactive and scripting mode. It's cross-platform, you know, and it's good for repeatable deployments. So when we have to deploy the same thing and instead of configuring the same thing, once we have the script and with just a few changes, we can do like several deployments of the same kind. And well, it's familiar to having coding experience for that people that has some coding experience. And basically those are the tools, you know, those are the tools that we use in Azure to deploy and configure our resources. All right. So now I want to talk to you about the ARM templates, okay, or the Azure Azure Resource Manager templates. But ARM, you know what ARMS means? You know, like the arm. We have both two arms, right? That even that it means Azure Resource Management or Manager, I like to think about it as an arm, you know. And when somebody asks you to, hey, give me a hand or throw me an arm, you know, like it will help you. So that's a way that I like to remember uh, to understand what it's an ARM template. So we're going to be talking about the ARM template. We're going to explore a little bit about the schema and the parameters, you know, in the script, in the code. And well, the bicep template, you know, bicep, it's even like more muscle. And we're going to do like a quick start on the portal. But this I'm going to do it on the lab. All right. So the templates, one of the advantages that it has, it's that it will improve consistency and promote reuse. So what that means, that thanks to that template, it will be easier for me to redeploy a resource that I already have, and I need to deploy again like a very similar resource. I can use the same template that I used before, or the same configuration that I used before, and I download it as a template and reuse it. So imagine that heavy hand that you're gonna have on your site. And this is going to reduce intensively, like in a really high way, the manual error and you working manually with the configuration and parameters. Of course, it's for repetitive tasks. Okay, it's express complex deployments, express requirements through code, provides validation tasks. It's modular, so that means that it can be linked, and it simplifies orchestration. So what is the finality, or what is the purpose of the ARM template? To make our deployments, to make our configurations, or our solution easier, you know, instead of, imagine that I have to, like here in the drawing, I have to deploy 3 different resources, one for development department, the other one for the production department, and one more for the quality assurance department. Let's imagine that the deployment it's similar. Of course, they're gonna have a few changes, right? But the deployment it's similar. I have to deploy pretty much the same rules, policy, or setups of the environment. So when I create my development, or let's say I have my first one created, I can download that one as an ARM template and use it. But maybe I'm not creating the first one. Maybe in the beginning I am using the ARM template that I decide to download it, maybe from the marketplace or somewhere that I found that script of code that I wanted. So what I do here is that ARM template, I just make a few changes in the parameters, and I can do the deployment for development, production, and quality assurance, instead of doing a deployment, a configuration, and set up the parameters one by one. You know, I just make the few changes, and that's it. So basically, this happened because many people have moved to the cloud, you know, and I don't know if you are aware about the agile methodology. So a lot of development team had acquired these methods, and they need to like deploy repeatedly many resources, many solutions to the cloud, um, to their infrastructure, and they want it to be in a reliable state, right? So to meet that challenge, you can automate the deployments. And how do you do that, the deployment? Well, with the ARM template. It's a use of practice, and it helps a lot. for the people who is making deployments, you know what I'm talking about. Instead of doing all the time the same configuration, you just select and that's it. And for that we have this schema, okay? And this schema, of course, is a JSON script object, and well, it will define all the resources in the deployment. You see all the parameters, the variables, the functions, the resources, the outputs. It will give you pretty much everything. And of course, it's writing in JSON, and it will give you the collection of key value pairs. And each key is going to be a string. Okay, as you can see here. All that we have to do is to fill up the parameters. So that's the beauty thing of working with the ARM, with the ARM templates. And it was something I mentioned before, like the bicep or biceps templates. You know, the bicep is the muscle here in the arm. So when we have the biceps, it's like having the ARM templates, but having like more strong. You know, it kind of help us to have better configurations or more parameters to be configured. So we have more strong, we have more muscle at time to deliver that solution. And also yesterday, if I'm not wrong, you can correct me, you did an Azure policy lab, you know, and there was someone asking me about the policies, like, hey, Rodolfo, could you please explain the policies again? And I'm just checking some of the questions. And I said, yes, of course, tomorrow we're going to review about the policies. So today is tomorrow. And here's that about the policies. The implementation of an Azure policy, why do we implement it in our solution, how to create it, and of course, the demonstration, which is also a lab that we're going to be reviewing. To implement an Azure policy, we have to understand that a policy is a service, okay, to create and assign and manage policies. Once again, so what is going to be a policy? It's going to be like a setup rule that we are going to give to our solution or to our deployment, and it has to be compliant to those rules. So it will run evaluations and scan for the non-compliant resources. So every resource that I deployed, and if it has a policy that I just set it up, then it will run an evaluation and see if that resource is being compliant with the rules, you know, with the policies. I won't call it rules, because a rule is one thing, a policy it's another thing. So what is one of the advantages that we have when you use the policies? It will help us to enforce and compliance, to do the enforcement and compliance, and we will apply policies at scale of remediation. So thanks to the policies that we applied, we will be able to find a good solution and remediation for those resources that are not being compliant. And some of the cases of uses that we have in the policies, let me just take this, is that we have allowed resource types. Allowed resource type, it's a specify the resource type that your organization can deploy. As well, we have allowed virtual machines, or SQs, which specify a set of virtual machines that your organization as well can deploy. The allowed locations, okay? So what it means, I'm setting up like a policy for allowed location. So that means if my computer has a policy for being working in Mexico, and I'm connecting to my cloud, and for some reason I've just traveled abroad Mexico and I'm trying to connect, even using the same computer, even using my same credentials, identification, authorization, and authentication, but I'm trying to connect from Brazil maybe, then I won't be able to do that connection. Why not? Because my device or my connection has a policy that it tells me that my machine has to be compliant with being working in Mexico. So if I'm not working in Mexico, or I'm not connecting from Mexico, then the policy will won't run, so I won't be able to connect. And like that, we can set up kind of a policies, not only these ones in the use of cases. So we're going to be able to create a policy for the type of resource, maybe for the a virtual network, maybe for a virtual machine, maybe for data storage. We can do that. All right. Also, we can set up a policy to require a tag and its value. Yesterday, we were doing the lab, and some of you tell me, hey, I can deploy the solution, I can deploy the resource, but they didn't ask me for the tagging. Okay. We have to make sure. Hi, Cyril, welcome. We have to make sure that the policy is activated in that specific resource or into that specific level. So we have to understand that when we apply policies up into the 6 levels of that we can go that deep. So what will happen if I have a policy at maybe at tenant level, a subscription level, and then I create that, and that subscription level policy will affect, like all the root, all the tree of resources. So what will happen if I apply another policy in one of the resources that is into that resource group that belongs to that subscription that has a policy? So which one is going to be the policy that is going to be working on that resource? Which policy is going to be affected? Or it's going to be like a policy conflict? No, not at all. When we apply a policy in an upper level, the lower levels are gonna inherit that policy. But when I apply a new policy, like in a lower level for a resource, then that resource will be working with the policy that it's being applied to it. So it's like it doesn't matter how high do you apply the policy on your solution. The one that it will take as a primary or priority, it's going to be the policy that it has in configure direct into the resource. And then it will apply the policies that it inherits from above layers. As well, we can use the policies for doing backups, like we should deploy a backup policy every time, once a month, or it's the time that you choose, but we can create policies. That's why we created. So it will help us to enforce organizational standards and to asset compliance at scale. Through its compliance dashboard, where we can find how the policies are working, how many resources are being compliant, we can check it from there. And that dashboard will provide you with an aggregated view, so you can evaluate the overall state of the environment. Okay, and you will have the ability to drill down to the per resource and see per policy granularity what's going on. It also helps you to bring resources to compliance through the bulk remediation, and for existing resources and automatic remediation for new resources. The policies will help you to evaluate that everything is being compliant for what you said. Some people is dropping to internet issue. Well, just a parenthesis here, it's funny, like we can be really good and be connected and be really experts with the computers, and after all, we we are pretty much dependent from the ISP provider, our internet service provider, and we are dependent of our electric company, right? So today, a couple of hours ago, I woke up really early in the morning because I'm working on Zulu time, and I find out that I don't have internet. You know how that's heavier. But after all, I get connected. It seems that it's working now. But anyway, I have like a secondary connection by phone in case of anything happens. So once again with the SOAR, right? Creating policies. What do we need to create a policy? We need to give it a definition. We need to define what it's going to be that policy for. Then we have to create an initiative for that definition. So what it will be the trigger, what it will be, what it will activate that initiative, that policy. What is going to be the scope, the scope, like the telescope, like the pirates, telescope. So where that policy is going to be looking at, where that policy is going to be targeting at, and of course determine the compliance. So what will happen after it runs the evaluation with the policy and it seems that it's compliance or it's not compliant. So we have to determine what it's going to happen. So maybe it can just send me an alert. Maybe it won't let me deploy the solution. Okay, it will be according to the way I determine that compliance. Okay. This is the one. So when we create a policy definition, okay, many definitions are available, many of them. So for example, let me just put it like here, this one. The definition says that, I don't know if I can just, I cannot. Where is it? Magnifying glass. And then I go with this one. Definition location, okay? So what is the definition that I want to use? It's Visual Studio Enterprise. I have to give them a name and of course create a brief, like a pretty short description, just to have some information about it. It's important to know that we can't bring those policies from GitHub. We can import those policies if we want it. Also, it's important to say that the policy definition have a specific JSON format. Okay, keep an eye on these because it could maybe be an exam question. Like they ask you what kind of format the definitions are templates or the definitions the script for. They will ask you it's JavaScript or C#, it's C++, but it's actually a JSON format, or they can ask you it's a query, it's JSON. All right, you can create your own custom policies. This is important thing, even that we have many things in Azure that we can use as tools, and we have the ARM templates, and we have the groups, and we have the RBAC, the role-based access control. Even that they gave us a couple of definitions, we can create our own. So that means we can customize that solutions according to the way we want it. In the same thing happens with the policy. They're going to give us some policies, like hundreds of engineers working in Microsoft, in Azure, to give us that solution. But also, if that solution is not precise the one that you need, you can customize it according to your needs. So that is wonderful because we can customize pretty much everything in Azure. when we create an initiative definition, we have to create a group policy definition. More than anything, not only what it will be initiate the policy, but if you watch the Avengers movie, you might remember that Samuel L. Jackson talking about the Avengers initiative, you know. So it's going to be a group. In that case, was a group of superheroes, right? In this case, the initiative is going to be a group of policy definitions. So when I create an initiative, that means that certain resources or group of resources, or saying it more precisely, when I create a solution, that solution should be compliant to a policy or to a policy initiative. And that means that it won't only be needing just one policy, but it will require to be compliant with several policies, right? Where you can include one or more policies. Of course, it will require planning. This is very, very important as well, the planning. Every time we are going to deploy a resource, every time we are going to present a solution and we want to create a solution, it's important that we make a plan, that we create a plan of the reach that we want to have, the resources that we are going to need. So it's very, very important that we create that planning. So that policy can be a scope. In this case, that if the initiative can be a scope to certain targeting to certain resource, or to certain could be region, or to certain group of resources. Where are you going to scope that initiative definition? Maybe I want to create an initiative in the East region. So everything happening in East region have to be compliant with the initiative definition calls East region. I don't know. Why not? Okay. And it will tell us how many of those initiatives are assigned and working on. And I can create like different scopes, you know? I can create different scopes according to what I need. So I will have to select the subscription and by optionally select the resource type that I want to scope on that policy. So when I determine the compliance, what will happen for those resources that are not compliant? Okay, so I can create a compliance, and I will tell what I wanted to do. You know, like it's not started, it's not compliant, running with some issues. So I can determine what it will be the result of that evaluation of the policy. In some cases, the resources can be deployed, but the policies, I mean, you can deploy a resource even if the policy is not being compliant. The resource, of course, is not going to be working according to what you determine. But it's also important to say that in some cases, resources cannot be deployed because of a policy inherit evaluation. So that's why it's important to do the planning, because maybe I'm trying to create a resource, and maybe I'm not being aware that I have a policy working in upper levels, and that will create a conflict. So I need to know very good how's the infrastructure in policy terms, talking about that compliance. That's important. And well, that's pretty much it about the policies, and that's pretty much it about the Azure resources. Now I want to let me see, because I want to be talking about. Let me just changing the PowerPoint presentation. So I hope that you're doing great. I see a couple of questions in the chat. Vital Cyril, hello Vital, welcome. Akram Mohammed, this is your first class. Yes, on the next session we'll be talking about the labs and fixing all those issues. In some cases, sometimes we have to fill up a report or send up an email to lab support. I hope this is not the case, but no worries. The labs are there until December the 15th. You can practice a lot. Remember that yesterday I told you that, guys. It's not that I have to go to the school and I have to be compliant with the labs and that's it. No, it's about you being self-learning person, like automate person, not automate. That's I don't like how it sounds. But that you have to self-learning, like you have the tools, you have the opportunity to have that tool, that portal in a way that it's, not too many people have the opportunity to work with a portal with practically all credit, like all the tools, all the resources, full credit, and you can do those stuff. So, so we better have like a good, sorry, I'm just sharing the screen that I shouldn't. I just need to change this one, change it with this one. So now it's time to talk about some of my favorites, which is the virtual networking. For those who had a little bit experience in networking in real life, I have to say that, sorry, I would just drink some coffee. Working with virtual networks in Azure, it's pretty much the same that working with the real network. Sorry, I'm just seeing a question. And it says, if I'm replicating an on-premises environment in Azure, do the same sort of policy apply, or do I need to search in Azure for compatible policies? If you are replicating, if you're replicating your self environment and you have your own policies, of course you're gonna be compliant to those policies, right? Yes, you have to, not to be incompatible. You don't have to share for compatible policies, but you have to create those policies, into the Azure solution. So once you bring your on-premises environment, you will be creating those policies, of course, in the Azure environment. So you don't have to look for it. You can create. Remember that those policies can be customizable, so you can make it at your own, Jacqueline. So I hope that I just answered your question. Yes, Team Alice, there is some tools where you can monitoring the policies. You can find it, of course, in your monitor in the lab. Sorry, let me see what's happening. So now let's talk about the virtual networks. Virtual networks, it's something I really like. I have a background with it, especially with radars and orbits and stuff. And we're going to be talking about how to configure a virtual network. You know what I love about being virtual? That to being physical, and if I need to connect to different devices, of course I need a cable, right, to connect those two devices. But when we talk about virtual, I don't need physically that cable, so I can create virtual connections. And creating virtual connections, it's awesome. Sometimes it makes me think like quantum computer, right? Like, the port is connected, but at the same time it's not connected, but at the same time it's connected, you know? So it gives you that beauty of connectivity. And we're going to be talking about intransitive connectivity in a couple of slides, but it gives you that benefit, which is really, really, really good. Okay. Jeja Murugan, if you have any question relating to the policy topic, just write it there in the chat. No worries. It's a Q&A chat, so it's only for questions and answers. It's not like a chat where everybody's chatting to each other. We will have it on the next session, which is pretty fun. Okay, and also we're going to be talking about configuring network security groups, also known as the NSG. Okay, you will see those ones. The Azure Firewall. The Azure Firewall, of course, it's for security infringements. It's a protection, and I am kind of old school, really, really old school. So for me, the firewall, I consider it as my first line of defense. Okay, so I can have. Let me just go here. I can have. Where is my? I can have different. I will try to draw a little bit. So I can have different resources in my network. Okay, let's imagine this is a. And maybe here we have www. That's like my internet. And here I have my firewall. For me, the firewall, it's like the first line of defense, you know, to everything that it wants to enter my cloud, or wants to enter my network from the internet, let's say from the www. It's going to have my first line of defense. But guess what? When I create a virtual network, I can create a defense in there. When I create a network security group, of course, I can set up some rules that it will help on my security. When I create a gateway VPN, okay, I'm also creating security rules inside. So imagine how much security do we have. And also, we have a firewall, which is my first line of defense. Also, we're going to be talking about the Azure DNS, the domain network service, and we're going to be implementing some virtual networks on the labs that we're going to do today during the lab session. I find it more easy for you to do and some practices on the labs. You know, you got me in front, I got the hands on it. So if you had any doubts, we could just be talking about during the deploying of the cell itself. So how to configure the virtual networks, also known as the VNets. You're gonna see a lot of these like small acronyms. I think it's called abbreviations of the resources, you know. Like I said, we have to plan our virtual network. It's super, super important that we plan the virtual network, because we need to know how many hosts, how many networks, how many subnets we're going to need, how many IPs. Okay, we have to determine the IP range for our subnet. And one thing that it's important to mention, it's like if you are related with networking, in networking, we used to lose 3 IPs, you know, the IP for the device, the IP for the broadcasting, the IP for the DNS, for the gateway. And when we work in Azure, we lost five IPs. is necessary. And also, when we create that virtual network plan, remember that we have to think all the time in expansion. Okay, it's not like, okay, I need 100 IPs, so I will create a 128 IP range, and that leaves me 8 extra IPs. No, because we always need to think about expansion. So it's important to leave quite some IPs reserved in case of expansion. For Marcelo Sebastian, if you lose the class, no worry. You can access the videos on demand after they are deployed to you. It takes like a couple of days after human verifications, but you can stay on today's class, continue with the class, continue with the labs. It's very easy, and see you on the lab session. When created this virtual network as well, we create subnets. And the subnetting, it's not more than the division of a whole network. For example, I'm going to drive here like a big square. I'm not really good at drawing, you know. I fail on my painting class. It's true. I'm not good at painting. So let's imagine we have this IP that goes from 0 to maybe, let me just write it here. Oh, 2, 5, 6. And this one goes here from 0 IP. So when I do that, here I having 256 IP ranges. So that means that I have 256 IP. So when I do a subnet, what I'm doing is dividing that network into smaller pieces. Okay, so that means that now I will have 2 different networks. One is going to be from 0 up to 127, and the other is going to be from 128 up to 260 and 56. And I keep subnetting those segments of the network, as you can see, and I can create small subnets inside. And you see, of course, that's going to be reducing the number of IPs that I have, you know, the range. Maybe here I'm having 128 IPs, but here I'm having only 64 IPs, for example. Okay, 64 IPs. And here I'm having only 32 IPs, right? And here I'm having only 16. Ooh, it's hard to write here. And so on. So we create those. Oh, yes, you're right. Up to, yeah, you are right. To 55, because the 0 doesn't count. But it's just example. That's what I'm saying. It's just example how we subnet, how that IP ranges it's being divided. When we create a virtual network, of course, we have to set up the parameters. We have to set up the name. We have to set up well, all that is required. Let me see if I can just open that portal. You know what happened here, because my portal, it says that my subscription has virtual networks. Let me see if I can open it. Let's cross fingers. Yes. So when I create a virtual network, and I'm when I hit create, remember that it takes some time. And when we create, you see, we have to fill up, of course, all the parameters, the subscription, that it has to belong to a resource group, or I want to create a new for my network. The name, I have to give them a name, and the region where that solution, that resource is going to be deployed. So I'm gonna choose, let's go with Network Voucher, and I wanna call it VNet AZ104. It's going to be deployed in East US. When I say to you, like, the certifications in Azure go step by step, that means Shivnel Gupta, if you didn't know about the subnets, how about the IP it worked? No worries, we guide you through that. Also about the network security groups, no worry, we have some labs about it. No worries about it. Okay, so when I'm talking about the certifications, if you take a prior certification, you might knew about the virtual networks, but you start not knowing deeply into those. And now you will see, as you keep going further onto the learning path in Azure, like step by step, you get to know more about that, the tools, more about the resources. So in the beginning, we need to know what is it, then what is it and what it does. And after that, maybe in the next certification, what is it that the resource, what it does, what else I can do, how much I can play with it. You know, it's like I said yesterday, it's like learning English. As much you learn, you find out that you can play with the rules and the exceptions as much as you can, and you can have your own way of expression, using those rules and using those exceptions. So it's kind of the same thing, but let's not rush. Have you ever heard that say that it says, don't run before you learn to walk? So that's important. It happens to me. Honestly, as an advice, when I was studying the cloud, I wanted to learn everything. So I start to watch tutorials all around, and I start to find out videos, and I start to find out the information, and I end up fulfilling myself with so much information that I couldn't handle. And I start to get confused, and I start to not understanding many things. That's how I start to be into the Azure cloud, because Microsoft present me that learning path, which it was designed for that kind of people. I think people like me, you know, who loves to learn, but I couldn't find like a path to follow. You know, I know all the topics related to the subject that I want to learn, but I couldn't find like a good path for it. So that's a good thing of Azure and Microsoft. And I was showing you the portal. So now I'm going to be passing, instead of doing the review and create, I'm going to go to the IP addresses tab here. And you can see it gives me an IP address, by default. Okay, in this case it's a 10.2.0.0 prefix 16. And I can choose if I want to add a subnet. So that means from this IP here, which is a /16, and it gives me 65,536 available IPs. I can do that into the subnet. So I can divide it on the half, and the half I can divide it on the halves, and so on. I can do like cutting a cake into small pieces. I can do that. And I can add a subnet if I want. And that subnet, I will call it subnet VNet to AZ104 maybe. Something I do here, it should be. And the IP range It has to be in the same IP range, of course, that the main network. In this case, is going to be 10.3.0. Maybe 0. And I'm going to use a /24. Oh, this is already selected, so I can choose to /20, /16 works. Oh, because I'm in a slice. Oh, I have this one already. Yes. Do not contain the virtual network address spaces. Why not? Oh, sorry, bad octet. Yeah. So now I'm going to use the 10.2.1.0 prefix 24. Okay. This one is going to give me 251 space addresses available, plus the 5 Azure Reserve addresses that I need. And I'm just going to add it. I'm not going to go like further into it. I'm just going to add it. It's just taking some time. It's loading. Just give it a time, please. Well, while the loading wheel is still working, I don't want to keep you. So we plan the addressing. So we have to know how many IPs do we need, how many subnets that we're going to need. Maybe I need a network. Sorry, like the network is going to be the whole, but maybe I need a subnet for the development department, and I need another subnet for the accounting department, and I need another subnet for my visitors or human resources and so on. So that's important that we plan the kind of IP addresses that we're going to use. Also, it's important to know that about networking during your exam, it's about the 25 up to 30% that of the questions that we can find it into the exam. But it's more about some of the rules. I'm just so when we plan a virtual network, you can see I have my own VNet, okay? And that VNet here have 2 different subnets, you see? Sorry, 2 different machines, not 2 different subnets. Well, there's some people saying that it's pixelated, my presentation. Maybe if you can close some of the, if you're navigating, it requires like some bandwidth to do the presentation. Remember that we are all around the world. That's what I said to you like the first day. Welcome to the cloud. All right, welcome to the cloud. And when we create that virtual network, I'd rather to use the other kind of G. This is my VNet. I create that VNet. Inside of that VNet, I have this subnet, okay, which is another space inside of that VNet, that virtual network's another space. And inside of that subnet, I have these 2 virtual machines, okay? That VNet, it's the one that it connects, or it can connect to my on-premises, or I can connect to other virtual networks, of course, with the correct protocol. So when we have to plan that virtual network, it's important to create a logical representation of your own network. Even if you do it with ROS and if you do it with some, there's some tools for creating those templates or those topologies. It's important that you have a better visual planning of your network. You have to create a dedicated private cloud only virtual network, if it's your case, and securely extend your data center with virtual network. So it's important to have all this in mind. Okay, as well, you can enable hybrid cloud scenarios in the case that you need to be working with your on-premises, and at the same time you need to be working with the cloud. Let's draw like a cloud here. I'm really bad at drawing. Okay, this is a storm cloud. Imagine it's going to rain. All right. So that is very, very important. And for the ones who were asking about the subnets, it's what I said. You can create right there every time you deploy a virtual network. You can create a subnet, and you can create as many subnets as you need if you have enough spaces. I mean, if your IP range allows you and you still have those available IPs, okay, you can keep creating the subnets. So the virtual network can be segmented into one or more subnets. That's what I was trying to tell you when I do like the cake here, dividing sorry, the half, and then the half and the half. So we create like from bigger to smaller subnets and so on. It could be the subnets could be provided with logical divisions within your network. You know, so you can have the subnet, you can still like doing more division about it. The subnets can help you to improve the security. That's important, to increase your performance and to make it easier to manage your network. Maybe I need to take out like a whole subnet, you know, or take out like a whole department out of my network. And instead of taking out the IPs and create, you know, like a command for stop the users or the devices using that IP that might be reserved for something. Instead of doing all that heavy work that we used to do back in the time, we just can select the subnet, which I don't need maybe the subnet for the financial department, maybe the subnet for human resources department. And I can take the whole subnet and I can delete it, modify it, change it, create a policy, what we need. And we have to remember that each subnet must have a unique address range. The subnets cannot be overlapped. That means like one IP cannot, two different devices cannot have the same IP. Two different subnets cannot have the same IP range. If we create it manually, like in a real network, if you ask me if it's possible, I will tell you it is possible. It will have a conflict when I try to connect those networks. I mean, I can create the networks, I can create the subnets. I'm talking physically, I'm not talking virtually. And everything is set up there. If I don't have communications, they might have not conflict. Or if they are not active, they might have not conflict. But at the time, like each subnet came active, it's going to show a conflict. In Azure, because it's been created, that's a good thing. It won't even allow me create it because it's going to say, hey, like when I was creating right now, and it was telling me that was an error, you know, and I thought it was because of the prefix, but no, it was because I was doing not the good octet. So it won't allow me. So that's a good thing. So that's a lot of time that we are having saved, you know, for ourselves. So when we create those virtual networks, we can do it at any time. It's very easy. I'll show you how to do that. We check select the subscription, the resource group, the name of it, the region we're gonna be, and of course, like I said, we have to be very, very aware that we don't overlap address spaces. Exam question: if I tell you, hey, can I use the same IP for 2 different resources? No, because the IP cannot overlap. I have this virtual network and I have to create 2 different subnets for the network. And you see that I create this IP range for subnet A and this IP range for subnet B. That will satisfy the solution, right? Or it will satisfy the requirements, and you will see, oh no, because they overlapped, or maybe yes, they don't overlap, so it's possible. So when we create the virtual network, we need to define the address spaces and at least 1 subnet. It's think when I told you it's important to think about expansion, to growing, to scalability. You know, technology, we have always thinking about scalability, and we need to create at least 1 subnet. If we don't create it, by default, it's going to give us 1. What's this one, I think? If I don't create that subnet, by default, it's going to give me 1. Where is it? I think they have a problem with my, maybe it's 2. I want to make it bigger for you guys. That's kind of, maybe, yeah, right? You can see by default, I create here, well, no, not me. It was created by default, this subnet. When I create my virtual network, it just do it by itself, because it's giving me that opportunity to grow. Okay, so that's good. So what happened when I am planning an IP addressing? What is going to happen when I need to plan how many IP address do I need? We have to take in mind that we are not only deploying machines. We are not only deploying laptops with a single IP or DHCP protocol that is going to connect. We have to consider many, many things, such as the VNet, such as subnets, such as the VPN gateway, such as maybe we need ExpressRoutes. I don't know, maybe you need an access point. Okay, so we have to consider that in a whole. That's why do we need to create that planning, to create that topology, to have a visual way of the network that it's very, very important. And we have to understand 2 things. One is that we have private IP addresses and that we have public IP addresses. So what's the difference? The private IP address is used within an Azure virtual network. So that means it's going to be inside of our network, all right? And our on-premises and my network. And when I use a VPN gateway or ExpressRoute to extend the network to Azure, so that's going to be private. So how a private IP connects with a public IP? So they are not in the range. They don't belong to the same network. So how is possible to connect? And that connection came with the gateway. The gateway for me, it's like the translator. Let's think about like as a translator, okay? That I want to connect to the network 200.200.00, and I'm reaching that network from the 192.168.0.1. So that's not into the same. So they have no connectivity, but I create maybe a gateway, and that gateway is going to help me to translate those IP and have communication. And of course, I have my VPN gateway, and of course, I have a DNS, right? Or I can create my own DNS if I need it. But it's important to understand that we have private IPs and public IPs. For example, if you connect your computer to your modem in your house, your router in your house, I'm pretty sure that you're having an IP that is going to be 192.168.0, and it could be from .2 up to 100. I am sure, because that's the way your router, your modem, is creating a private IP address for your internal network. But your router, it's connecting to a public IP address that it could be 200.169.202.17. And that public IP address is used for communicating with the internet, including, of course, the Azure public services. But we get to connect to that. So how that it's happening? How is it possible that I connect my private IP with a public IP? Well, that's the work of the modem. And inside of that modem, inside of that router, we have several protocols, like the gateway, like DNSs, like firewalls. Well, a bunch of protocols and tools that we can also use. But this is just a meandering example. Okay. It doesn't mean that it's like that. It's just for telling you how that works, so we can have the same. Imagine this Azure resource is like the modem, okay? So we can have the same connectivity with it. So when we create those public spaces, we have to know that we can have these protocols, even IPv4 or IPv6 or both. We can create basic or standard. So like the cheap one, or not expensive one, but the better one. Like having like a first quality router at home, or having the router that is provided by your internet provider. You can choose if your IPs, you want them to be dynamic or static. So that means, sorry. So that it means if you want that your IP is constantly changing, or you want to assign a static IP for different devices. Of course, we can choose to be some redundant. Remember that this is one of the benefits of the cloud: some redundant, high availability, elasticity, scale, all of those. So it's the benefits of the cloud, and the range of continuous addresses available as prefix. So that's also good. That just because of the prefix, we can have continuous available addresses. And then we associate the public IP, and we can associate that public IP to a virtual machine, maybe to a load balancer, to a VPN gateway, to application gateway. Okay, and it's important to know. Well, I have never set up like a security. Well, the virtual machine has its own security, but I have never. Now that I'm checking like that, I have never configured a virtual machine to have security. We have like the internal, we have like Windows Defender and stuff. We have our internal security, but what I'm trying to say is that each one of those has its own security. And maybe you remember I tell you about security, like they have the OSI model, and we have the 7 layers in security in the OSI model. And when we talk about security in Azure, the good thing about it is like it has in each level of those layers in the model, it applies that security. And as well, we have the firewall, like I said, is the first line of defense, but we can apply some security to the load balancers. We can apply some security to the VPN, okay, to the applications gateway. So we can apply so much security. And I keep talking about security because I'm just impressed with the work that Microsoft have done so far, and everything is possible. If you ask me, everything is possible in Azure, but to break security. Yes, I'm just finished this one, and we're gonna have like a 5 minute break. Just give me a couple of minutes before we go. And we can associate private IP addresses even with the virtual machine, the internal load balancer, and the application gateway. We can do the could be a front end configuration. That means that you're in front of the computer and you do the configuration, or you can do it through the NIC or maybe to a MAC addresses if it's your choice. Remember that you can do that association with a dynamic IP or with a static IP. Okay, so yes, let's going to have a 5 minute break. If you are ready for it, I will just run the timer. If it's good for you, take a 5 minute break and see you when you back. I'm here. Just let me open the timer. See you back at UTC. See you back at 10:20. 10:20 in the morning. If you have the universal time. I will just run this timer on the screen. Go. I don't know if you can see me, hear me, but I'm back. Okay. I'm experimenting some issues here with the devices, but it seems that everything's good. Okay. Let's go. Let's go quickly. The next. We're going to be going like kind of fast here. I mean, for me, it's just to you not to fully become an expert in each resource after you watching these sessions with me. No. It's you to get to know a better idea of the tools and of the resources that we have in Azure. Okay. Because having a better idea of the resources that we have is going to give us a better and way to do the administration of the solution. Remember, we are getting to the administration level. This is a 104 certification. We are not getting up to the level to become an architect or to become like a high specialist in Azure. It's a step by step, because I'm seeing some questions about like related that you want to know more and about it, and you want to like get to know deeply more things. So so it's so more than okay. So don't worry about it. It's just about knowing what we have, what are the tools we can use, such as the network security groups, also known as the NSGs, network security groups. We're going to be watching a lot of these acronyms all around in the certifications, or even during the modules. Let's take this one here. So we do implementations of a network security groups. Why do we do network security groups? Imagine that we have networks. We create different networks. We have different. Well, we have the same organization, have the several departments or maybe several sites, several branches, and all of them are working into a whole network. And those networks, I want them to be compliant, maybe with a policy, maybe with certain rules. And for that, talking about networks, I can create a network security group. Okay. For example, I want to create a rule that I want all my employees cannot access social media. So I create a network security group where I'm going to configure all the networks, all the IPs. And one of the rules that I'm going to have is that not social media is going to be accessed. So I can create that blockage, or many other things. I can do that according to the group. So basically, what I'm doing is creating a group, okay, of my networks for applying certain type of security. So I can determine the rules and how the rules are going to be effective. Okay, that's what we can do. And also, last but not least, I can create an ASG. It's going to work pretty much the same as an NSG, as a network security group. But the huge difference is this is going to be scoped for applications. Instead of working for my network, for my IP, for my subnets, this is going to be working for my applications. All right. So I can create a group of security for my application. I don't know. Maybe I create an application that allows the users to go over the internet, and maybe once I have catch my clients, okay, once that I have my clients in my portal, in my web page, of course I don't want to lose them. So I won't give them exit icons, as I call them. What are the exit icons? When you are navigating on the internet and you enter a page or something, and the first thing they give you is like the icons to go on Twitter, go on Facebook, go on this. For me, I consider those like exit icons. So I'm giving my client the opportunity to leave my portal. And I don't want that. I want that my client remains in my portal, right? So I'm kind of, well, of course, I'm old school. So I'm kind of against just using icons once I have catch my clients. And I can do the same thing with my applications. I can do that and make sure that my application don't show those kind of icons, you know? And I create that group, or I can make that application, it's not allowed to go outside of my internal network. That I can create like a geofence, so it cannot go on another network. Network security works on 4th and 5 OSI layer. The security works on the layer 4, but it also you can see some of them on the layer 7. The thing is, the security talking in virtual, it's not working on a specific layer. It actually works on the 7 layers. So it won't allow to go to the next layer until it is complying with all the security rules. It could be in the data layer, in the transportation layer, in the application layer, and so on. So that's the best thing about. I don't know if we already seen that, but if not, I'm pretty sure at the end I will explain it. What it's defense in depth. Okay, from Azure, Microsoft Azure. Defense in depth means that the security is not going to be working only on the security layer. Okay, it's going to be working in all the layers. So that's more security, right? Well, really quickly, you know, if I want to implement a network security group, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my portal and I'm going to create a new security group, and I will be determining the limits of the network traffic to the resource or into a virtual network. I will list the security rules that allow or deny to have the inbound or outbound traffic. I can create those rules. I will associate it to a subnet, maybe an interface, maybe a virtual network. I can associate to it, and I can associate multiple times. So that means I can create the same rules in that network security group and apply that network security groups to the networks that I consider, to the subnets that I consider. Of course, when I create the rules, I will set up the priority. We have to understand that as less is the number of the priority, it's more important. As bigger is the number, it's going to be like not that higher in priority. The security rules in the network security groups enables you to filter network traffic that can flow even inbound or outbound of your virtual network, subnets, and network interfaces. There are set up by default some security rules that you cannot delete the default rules, but you can add other rules with higher priority. When you determine what's going to happen with the effective rule in your network security group, the network security groups are evaluated independently for the subnet and to the computer that it wants to connect. And it will allow, okay? So if it wants to connect, it has to have that rule that allow that both levels of traffic will be admitted. And when I'm saying both levels, I'm referring to inbound traffic and outbound traffic. You know, like this is inbound, it's coming in, this is outbound, it's going out the traffic. So you have to have that allow configuration. We use the effective rules link if you are not sure which security rules you're being applied. When you create it, you can have like a list, not at least, a list of different rules that could be applied to it. And of course, the rules that we can apply it to the source level, destination level, service level, and the priority. We can apply those rules, okay, to the source. I want to apply it to any IP, to maybe a service stack, to maybe application security group. I want to create a rule to the destiny, to an IP, a specific IP or group of IP ranges, maybe the virtual network, or also an application security group. I can apply that rule as well to the kind of service, maybe to the HTTPS protocol, to the SSH protocol, to the RDP, like the remote desktop protocol, DNS, POP3. I know POP3, it's very known for the emails, and so on. According to the protocol, I can apply a rule. And of course, the priority. The lower the number, the higher the priority. Okay. And let me just show a portal here. And I want to create an NSG. Create network security group. Okay. Okay, and I can create a new network security group. Oh, no. I want to choose a specific one. Let's call it Network Watcher. NSG. I said 104. I have to do that to remember what I'm doing. I can create a tagging, maybe networks, and the value is test. So every time I'm looking for something that says tests or networks, it will be easy because I have already tagged it. It's a good habit. I mentioned it yesterday. Oh, something happened. What I did here. No. I think I just run. Oh, okay. I cannot create it. My subscription, it's ended. But yeah, if I just create it, then I can create that one. And once that it's created, I can just make a few things. I have one here, so I can just read it. So I can show you. And I can set up in the menu here. I have settings. I can create inbound rules or outbound rules if I want. Of course, I can create the logs. You see, maybe I don't want anybody to delete by mistake the resource, the subnets that I'm creating inside that network security group. So we can create that. We can configure all that right there in the portal. So what happened when we implement it? Well, of course, it's going to extend the application structure now because we have nice security. The application security groups, logical group, virtual machines, and web server, application server. We can do all that in the network security group. You see here, all this is a VNet here. VNet. Oh, it's hard to write with the mouse. In my VNet, I have my network security group here, and I have my application security group here. I can apply it to different levels. You see, we have a security if I want to access those ones. I can define the rules, which is also important. Define the rules, control the traffic flow. What else I can do? I can wrap the application security group with a network security group for added security. So that means that inside of my network security group, I can create an application security group. I'm not going to say that it's nested, but it's more like saying that it's it lives inside of it. I can create that application security group living inside of my network security group. So what will happen? I have extra security, because to access the application security group, first I have to be compliant with the network security group and then do the next one. And that's pretty much it about the network security groups. And now let's talk about the firewall, which is the first line of defense, as I call it, right? It's going to be my first line defending me from different attacks, DDoS attacks, and some stuff. What are the uses? Why do we use firewalls? Okay, we use a firewall as a service. This is too small, right? And this firewall is gonna be here to help me to deny traffic by default or accept traffic according to the configuration. It's built in with high availability with unrestricted cloud scalability. So I can, if my cloud is growing, if my on-premises server or site it's growing, then I can continue growing this firewall according to its needs. So it's important to know that. That's the huge difference between the capital expenditure and the operational expenditure. So if you have a firewall in your on-premises and your network or start to grow, what do you need? You need to do an extra expense to buy a new firewall that complies with your needs. In the case of the cloud, you don't need to do that, because according as you're growing, you can scale that firewall. Okay, so that's another benefit, right? You can create and enforce and log application and network connectivity policies. It has threat intelligence based filtering. So that it means every data that is coming to the Azure firewall, it has let's call the firewall has like a library of malwares and all the like viruses and stuff. So it has like intelligent threat-based filtering that is constantly checking between that library if any of the data coming it's corrupt or not. It's fully integrated, of course, with Azure Monitor, so you can still watch about your firewall logging and analytics about it, like how many attacks, what's happening, if there was a crash or a loss of data into the traffic. And of course, the firewall supports for hybrid connectivity through deployment behind VPN ExpressRoute gateways. So that means that I can connect my firewall even that I use my on-premises right here. Okay, and I can connect to my firewall to connect to my different virtual machines or to my solutions, or even just to go outside of the internet. So I can do that with my firewall. To create a firewall, well, it's a hub-spoke network topology. It's recommended. So it's important, like doing the virtual networks, that we plan how we're going to set up that topology. Okay, you have to understand as well that the services are shared and are placed in the hub virtual network. Also remember that each environment is deployed to a spoke to maintain isolation. So this is different environments. It has its own. This is one virtual network. This is another virtual network here. These ones are paired with my hub, okay? And this hub, well, this one connects through a bastion. This one connects with a VPN gateway, but all of them are shared with the firewall, okay? Also, in the firewall, we can create some rules, like the NAT rules, network rules, and application rules provide. What are they for? Well, the NAT rules will allow incoming connections. Okay, maybe I need open a port for email service, or maybe I have an internal chat in my organization. Well, I can create that rule to allow that kind of incoming messages. Of course, I can create network rules that it will contain source and destination addresses, such as protocols, as well as protocols and destination ports. Why do I create these? Because I want to have connectivity. Maybe I'm connecting my PC to a machine. Maybe I'm working in the industry 4.0 and I want to control some machines and I need to send data over some ports okay, or to a specific address using a specific protocol. So I can create that rule to allow that to happen or not to happen, of course. And as well, we can do the application rules that provide qualified domain names, or also known as FQDNs, that can be accessed from a subnet. And that's pretty much it about network security, the firewalls. Now let's talk about the DNS. I'm trying to go like really quickly so we can jump into the labs and watch these into the real practice. We have to identify the custom domains. We have to remember this every time when you create a virtual network in Azure. You are provided with a DNS, okay? And that DNS could be a name, or you can bring your own custom domain to it and apply it to that IP address that you've been provided when you create that solution. You can verify custom domains. It's like go searching if there is availability for that domain, and you can create DNS zones. You can create DNS domains. You can create record sets, and of course, private DNS zone. You can do all those things with the DNS. Instead of having a DNS provider or someone that is going to host that domain name for you, you can do that in Azure. And you are being provided with one. When you create an Azure subscription, an Azure ID domain is created for you. That's what I'm saying. The domain has initial domain name of domainname.omnicraft.com, but you can customize it and change the name. Maybe you want to call it Rodolfo's class base@104.com. And instead of you connecting to that IP number, you can connect straight to the DNS. After the custom name is added, it must be verified. So that means that nobody else in the whole world, in the whole network, is using the same domain. Sorry. I am so sorry. Thank you very much. All right. So that's why we create the custom domains. And we can create DNS zones. The DNS zones, it's a host to the DNS records for a domain. We can have multiple zones shared with the same name. Each instance, each one, it will be assigned to different server address. And the difference between the DNS zones and the DNS domain is that when you delegate the domain, where is my pen? When you delegate the domain and to the Azure DNS, you must use the name server provided by your Azure DNS. Okay, use all four, because we have like here. Let me just go like to see it bigger. Every time we create a network, where's my pen? Here it is. We are given with some names. I have a .com, I have a .net, I have a .org, I have a .info, okay? But if I don't want to use this one, okay, I can do my own. But once that I do my own, it has to go through verification to see if it's available. And then I won't change the ns102.azure DNS. I can change it to Rodolfo's class 104.com, .net, .org, wherever it's up my choice. So that means that you can create your own domain in Azure. You're given with your own domain in Azure. And when you create the record sets, it's pretty much a collection of the records in a zone that have the same name or are in the same type. Okay, you can add up to 20 records to any. It actually says to the record set. Okay, the record set cannot contain two identical records, and you can change the drop-down type, change the information as required. For example, this one is called Hello World.Azure Azure Admin inc.org, or I can create, you choose the name. The type of the record is going to be tape I, tape B, tape C. You choose that you have an alias record, okay? And you can choose the IP addresses where that DNS is going to be set it up. And where is my... When you plan for a private DNS zone, you can, of course, but we said, you can use your own custom domains, but as well, you will provide with a name resolution for the machines within the same virtual network and the virtual network to each other. You have an automatic hostname record management, and it will remove the need for custom DNS solution. Why? Because you already have your own private DNS. This is the Azure DNS here, okay, but it's private because it comes from Contoso.lab. And it responds with the private IP, and it will connect to the resource with a private IP. And all of this, we have to understand that all of this is inside of a virtual network. This is my own VNet. This is not outside internet here. It's internal, okay? So I can create my private DNS zone and are available in all Azure regions. I can do that in the all regions. How do I determine those scenarios to be private? Well, I have to determine that the DNS resolution in the VNet one, for example, is private and not accessible from the internet. So that means that here, if I want to create a private IP, I need to make sure that this VNet is not accessible from internet, that is internal, or it has not connection to the internet. Otherwise, it won't be private. It will be public, okay? So the DNS query across the virtual network are resolved, but they're resolved outside of the network. So that's the query. Sorry. This query goes for too much painting here. This query, for example, it goes for the 10.0.0.4, and this one is 10.0.0.5. This query is for virtual machine 2, and this query is for virtual machine 1. Even that they are responding from different, they are being resolved by the DNS private zone record. So the DNS queries are scoped to the same virtual network. That's important, that this DNS or the resolution, it's scoped to the same virtual network if I want to have it private. Otherwise, it won't be private, right? And that's pretty much it about the virtual networks, the firewalls, the network security groups, the Azure security groups, and the DNS. So if you really, it's too much information, I know, but don't worry. All that you have to know about it during the certification, it's what it's a VNet for, to create a virtual network. What I can do with the VNet? Well, I can create subnets. Why do I need VNets? Because I need to create different IPs for my resources, okay? I have network security groups. Why do I create network security groups? Oh, because maybe I need to set up certain rules and they need to be applied to a group of IPs or a group of virtual networks. And if instead of doing it like one by one, I want to do it for a group. And every change that I do for that group, it's going to be changing in the whole network. We talked about the policies as well. We talked about that it's important to have policies. We talked about the firewall as the first line of defense. We talk about the DNS, which the DNS, all that you have, well, you have to know many things, but for me, the most important thing is understanding that having a DNS in Azure is having your own resolution name. So every time that you create that network, you're going to have a resolution name that is customizable to what you want. And of course, you can bring your own domain. If you have one, you can bring your own domain to it. So that's a good thing. Okay. So before we go to the labs, I'm just going to close this for a minute. Before we go to the labs, I want to talk to you about the Intersite connectivity. Just give me one, because sometimes it's very, very slow. I will close this one here. I'll just take it out. I don't know what happens. It always do that to me. I have to change this one. Okay. Firewalls. It's important for me to have the firewalls. To show you. Well, I wouldn't be able to create firewalls because I don't have like more in my subscription. If I just can. But this is important. Someone was asking me, what about the SQ? The SQ is going to be, it's stock counter unit. It's like a way to charge. It's the value of an asset. That's what SQ means. So in this case, what's the value of the firewall? So it will be depending of the kind of subscription that you get, and you can choose from basic, from standard, premium. You know, you can do, for example, in standard, you can use like firewall policies to manage the firewall, or use like Fire Classic rules. In basic, you cannot choose the firewall management, and in premium, you cannot use it. Only in standard, you can do that. You can create a virtual network name, and you can choose the virtual network if it's a new one, or if you want to use an existing one. And you can even force the tunneling. You can do many things on the firewall. But it's like I said, I like to see the firewall as my first line of defense. It's like I like to see it. Okay, but now changing the subject a little bit, it's time to talk about the Intersite connectivity. Okay, so how do we are going to having those peerings? How we are going to connect two different networks each other? How those networks with different IP ranges from different IPs, okay, maybe different networks, how they are going to be connected, all right? And how to configure the ExpressRoute. To configure a VNet peering, so what it means a VNet peering, when you peer, when you connect two different things with each other, you're having like a peerings from both sides, you know? So I having a peer or a peering. So we have to determine the kind of use we are going to use, to have. For example, if I have a solution deployed in the region 1, and then I want that solution to connect to some solution in region 2, that will call global VNet peering. Why? Because they're in separate regions. So the peering that I'm doing, it's going to be global. But if I have to do that peering inside of the same region, maybe in different sites, the same region, then I call it regional peering. So it's important to know what kind of peering do I need, because remember, that's how much I'm going to be spending. So there's two types of peering, the global and the regional, and they connect two Azure virtual networks together. You can peer across subscriptions and tenants. So what it means, maybe I have my own subscription working, and some of you, I don't know, some of the chat I see in the chat. So Akram have another. He's a tenant owner of another Azure account. So I can connect those networks from my account, okay, to Akram account, and I can do that through the peering. It could be regional or it could be global. Okay, it's really easy to set up, seamlessly data transfer, and it has a great performance. The best thing of it is that it works on the, well, this is something about the AZ700, but when we are using the networks, remember that Azure and Microsoft, it's always going to use its own infrastructure for that connectivity. In case of failures or something, of course, it's going to find another way, but the fastest way is connectivity that Microsoft has, Azure has. Also, we need to determine the gateway transit and connectivity needs. So how much traffic is going to be passing that door, okay? How many people is going to be going through that door, that gateway, to see if that door is wide enough to support all the traffic. To estimate the global peerings between the tenants, Daniel, I recommend you to use the total cost of ownership calculator, and you can have it there. The gateway transit allows peered virtual networks to share gateway and get access to the resources. You can see here how we have the peering from a hub VNet to VNet A or VNet B. And here we got the VPN gateway. So this gateway, it's allowing me the traffic, it's allowing the gateway traffic go through straight through the VNet B, because I can use a remote gateway. In the other case, I won't, because I have a UDR. Okay. So instead of going all the way to the traffic, I create like a special door, like a gateway transit, that it will connect me as I need. So that's why I use the gateways. Then when I create that peering between the VNets, of course, I will allow virtual network access the settings, and I can configure forwarded traffic settings. Forwarded traffic settings, you know, I can, let me just put it better. I can, where is the pen? Oh, I think it's here. Here it is. I can allow or I can block all the traffic to the virtual remote network. I will give it a name. I can allow or I can block the traffic forwarded. I can use a virtual network as a remote virtual network gateway, or I can use the virtual network gateway according to what it gives me. So I can set up all those. And last but not least, the service chaining uses. How to determine the service chaining uses? By leverages the user-defined routes and service chaining to implement the custom routing. So that means how are we going to use the service? How is going to be chaining? There's actually another word. I don't like too much chaining. Implement also the VNet hub with a network virtual appliance or a VPN gateway. So maybe I'm just connecting to a virtual machine, or I'm connecting to a virtual appliance, maybe to my alarm, to my my CCTV, my IP cameras. So I can select what kind of network I am connecting in my hub net, where I'm connecting to that .NET. It's a virtual appliance. It's a VPN gateway, right? And I'm connecting to my VNets from it. So basically, the service chaining enables you to direct traffic from one virtual network to a virtual appliance or to a virtual gateway. It happens into a peer virtual network through user-defined routes. Okay, so I can choose if I want to have that connectivity. It's going to a VPN gateway, and from that VPN gateway, it's going to connect to another VNet, or it's just going to connect to an endpoint, which is going to be like a network appliance. All right. So everybody, thank you so much. That's it for today. I see you into the lab session in 30 minutes. So thank you so much for your attention, and I see you in the labs in some minutes. Have a beautiful break, and I see you back. All right. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow, same time, please, same time. See you in the lab session. Bye-bye.